Apparently, Kevin Tracker not set in stone to get the cash from his ex, Wendy Williams, that he sees no lines he can't cross now his distress has stirred things up around town, and transformed him into a genuine beast that will squash anything en route to cash words on the road that Kevin is presently compromising Wendy, and on the off chance that she doesn't continue sending him provision checks, he will declare the full-scale battle against his ex until her records dry up. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Celeb Live Station. I keep my eyes on the most examined occasions in the stage and continuously present to you the most sweltering updates. So Kevin Tracker's picture of a caring husband and caring dad has long time been obliterated by his nervy activities, yet he doesn't actually remember to stop sources guarantee that he undermines Wendy straightforwardly and requests his support installments back yet. It seems like Wendy will never again follow his lead since she has arranged one more unsavory treat for her ex. And to miss any piece of this wreck, stay with me until the remainder of this video. Evidently, Kevin Tracker was certain that his separation with Wendy Williams was so quiet and smooth that he even played a really focusing ex on sometime just after this activity. When Wendy was set into recovery, he was so careful in his statement and stayed under the radar. He was dependably courteous and conscious toward his ex making statements. Like, it makes me extremely upset to see what is befalling her. I realize she isn't in a decent spot, and she is encircled by individuals who are making the most of her condition, including the supposed guardianship anyway. The job of a steady ex had all the earmarks of being very exhausting for him, since he immediately shifted his perspective and continued boasting about his new lavish way of life with his escort Serena Hudson, and totally dismissed Wendy's condition and issues. Presumably, he was unable to accept his own karma when Wendy gave him a no-fuss separate without any outrages, and surprisingly, a touch of provision that she was obliged to send him consistently, knowing how he treated her. Such an extremely long time betrayed her and bothered her well-being problems and liquor maltreatment. By making a side child, this was a genuinely simple exit for Kevin, and positively the one he never merited, yet Kevin was mixed up to accept that their detachment was friendly, and that the karmic boomerang wouldn't return to hit him hard. In his meeting at the West Side paper, he said I was qualified for my half of all that we had, very much like some other couple. Separating from I went to the table with sincere intentions, and we arrived at one I believed was a genial separation. As a matter of fact, it was one of the quickest superstar separates from at any point, well, definitely while he partook in the divorce settlement and resided like a ruler with his flapjack sovereign. He was all good and certain anyway. When he was trimmed off from his clearly the main type of revenue make of Wendy's checks, he totally changed his disposition, and his further activities were getting increasingly more daring, attempting to hurt Wendy for making him unfortunate. He began to openly humiliate his ex in case that he was qualified for get half of her reserve funds. And presently he arrived at the point that he basically compromises her to give him the portion of that he purportedly merits, as since his own cash began to rapidly evaporate on the grounds that supporting the way of life that he became acclimated to while residing with Wendy was difficult, he went endlessly further with his cases, presumably trusting that something will work and persuade Wendy to alter her perspective on the support. He even gave himself credit for the Wendy show achievement and called himself the lord behind the purple seat of force, alluding to the renowned rocker, where Wendy was spilling her everyday tea for 13 seasons. Might you at any point envision how frantic and weak this man ought to believe to express such things about his debilitated ex-companion that had been in a real sense taking care of him such an extremely long time? Yet it was a striking move, as well as a silly one, on the grounds that Kevin just embarrassed himself by his meetings. Yet since Wendy didn't respond to this, something in his mind provoked him that he had the freedom to toss more shade at her. The shortfall of cash positively gets more awful individuals in light of the fact that Kevin's Mr. Serena joined his party and assisted with humiliating Wendy through her Instagram. I mean out surprisingly Sharia ought to be quick to keep her mouth shut in the story. So without any provision checks to purchase another fashioner sack for his boo, Kevin began to be anxious about the possibility that he may be losing something beyond the cash. In his home, there were hypotheses that his purported perfect partner, Serena, was going to leave him and find one more friendly benefactor that will put resources into her hotcake realm. That is the reason Kevin had to enlist one more legitimate group and search for signs permitting him to blackmail cash from Wendy. And he might feel very certain now, considering his aggressive statements when he figured out that Wendy was chipping away at some secret undertaking. He returned to playing his tune about being penniless and, surprisingly, reached his ex to remind her about their separation plans. However, the main thing he accomplished so far is public scorn. Wendy's fans have been cooking him on virtual entertainment. Starting from the start of this show, one individual remarked he got cash. Yet he needs Wendy's cash. He's nauseating. And the vast majority of Wendy's fans say exactly the same thing as this individual. Come on, buddy, stop the babble, go find a new line of work. Yet who needs a task when you can spend your excess assets on costly lawyers and compromise your ex in the expectation, coerce additional money from her? Sounds like Kevin Tracker's state of psyche. And taking into account that Wendy is gradually returning to work, and in any event, recording a few ventures as I talk, he accepts that this might be an indication for him to assemble more powers in his battle against her. That is the reason he excused the old legitimate group that let him down in court once and employed more experienced attorneys. Yet Wendy is a savvy lady, and she presumably talked about the circumstance with her own lawful group prior to sending off anything. I'm almost certain that she as of now has a counter-arrangement against Kevin's activities. That is the reason we saw her partaking in her life, wandering around New York City with her team, and making visits to the radio broadcast. Her schedule is brimming with occasions and solicitations, since individuals are as yet anticipating her rebound, and she looks more than prepared to continue on and partake in her existence without him. This clearly makes Kevin look hopeless. While he is rejecting the last coins to cover his bills, Wendy gleams and carries on with her legitimately merited existence of a big name, feasting at extravagant cafes and wearing brands. It seems like Kevin really anticipated that she should never recuperate from his unfairness and can't stand her finding true success without him. And deciding by his hopeless way of life, he lost it totally and began not exclusively to say an ever-increasing number of daring things, yet additionally act frantically and menacingly. Yet Wendy couldn't care less about his difficulties any longer. She's occupied with her new tasks, and anything her ex said, she just snickers at his pitiful statements. And it appears as though she triumphs ultimately in the end, in light of the fact that Kevin himself into a recurring bit of fun. Simply check what my supporters say regarding him, one individual remarked.